Good evening. Thank you to everybody for coming. We've got a packed house tonight. It's brilliant. So welcome to the APG and welcome to another Noisy Thinking. I think it will be a noisy one. You can help out on that with the Q&A at the end, by the way. So the subject today is I wouldn't let a planner near my boardroom. No wonder so many of you are here. I don't know if you know how this one came about, actually. I think it was in campaign where somebody was having the debate about planners and their ability in the boardroom. I think, I might be wrong, but I think it was the marketing director of Toshiba who said, wouldn't let a planner near my boardroom. I don't know, maybe that's their problem. I don't know. Anyway, we have got two absolutely stellar speakers here tonight that we're really, really lucky to have. So I'm going to introduce them. Then they're going to do their noisy thinking, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So firstly, Paul Feldwick, who I'm sure everybody will know or know of, towering figure in planning. Of course, he ran for a very long time, hugely successful planning function at BMP, and over the years increasingly worked at DDB when it became a global network, and developed a global framework for planning and helped to found DDB University. And he's a doyen, a guru of effectiveness, as I'm sure we're all aware. He's written and lectured extensively on how advertising works, and with his vast experience in helping to create, some of the most famous brands, most famous campaigns we know and love today, it's an absolute honour to have him here to talk on the subject of planners in the boardroom, having been one for so many years. And we also have Simon Gulliford, who's just an incredibly accomplished and successful marketeer. After many years in academia as head of marketing faculty, he just went on to super successful senior marketing roles where he transformed both brands and businesses. As marketing director of Sears, he relaunched Selfridges. At EMAP, he launched and developed FHM and Heat magazine, some of our favourites. And as group marketing director at Barclays, just built an absolute world-class marketing team, marketing organisation. He's carried out numerous pieces of work. Last time I worked with him, it was on EasyJet when he was interim CM, Chief Marketing Officer. And he's worked on everything from strategy projects on BAA to Cannes Lion to, as I said, EasyJet. And he's going to bring us a very precious client-side perspective, I think, of the boardroom. So a lot to learn there. And I'm sure he'll give lots of great advice and lots of great anecdotes, knowing Simon. So we'll kick off, and I'll hand over to Simon Gulliford.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Firstly, I'm staggered that so many people have turned up on a Tuesday night when there's about to be a snowstorm, so thank you very much for that. I'm going to speak for about 30 minutes. I regard things like this as a bit of a therapy session. I get things off my chest, things that I'm particularly concerned about or things that I'm particularly angry about. And hopefully some of it you'll disagree with, some of it you will agree with. I think one of the great myths about business is that being in the boardroom is exciting. I have to tell you, most of the time in the boardroom is about as interesting as watching your fingernails grow. And I can remember when I was in my 20s aspiring, one day, please, God, let me get into the boardroom, because this is where all the exciting stuff takes place. It doesn't. Yeah, genuinely it doesn't. I mean, I've been on the board at Barclays, I was on the board at Sears, I've been on the board of Rotary Watches, I've been on the board of a company you've never heard of called William Jackson, who make that wonderful product, Aunt Bessie's Yorkshire pudding. I have to say it is mostly unbelievably tedious. I'm a non-executive director of Morgan Sindall, the construction company, and I'm a non-executive director of Aegon, the pensions and life company. Nearly everything that you do in publicly quoted companies is make sure that you're complying with the requirements of shareholders. Very rarely do you make really, really big decisions in the boardroom. Mostly the decisions are made outside of the boardroom. And the thing which is really important is if you're going to have genuine influence, you have to have the ear of two people. You have to have the ear of the chief executive, and you have to have the ear of the finance director. In my experience, working with agencies sometimes have a good relationship with chief executives, but hardly ever get to have conversations with the finance director. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know whether we're put off by the fact there's lots of hard sums which surround the the finance director, and that hard sums is not necessarily the thing that we feel most comfortable about. But if you are going to have genuine influence, it's not about the place where that influence takes place. It's about the people that you influence to make decisions in line with your aspirations. Quote from Bill Shankly. There are many people in the room who won't know who the hell Bill Shankly is because you're all too young. Bill Shankly was probably one of the greatest football managers of the 1970s and 1980s. He looked after Liverpool. He said, if the player's good enough, I put him in the team. Ability is the only thing I consider. Now, he was asked about that because he was picking one guy who was 41 who was playing for the team at the same time as picking somebody who was 17. His view was it's only ability that gives you the ticket to the game. It's not status which is derived from other issues. It's if you're good enough, then you have the opportunity to turn up and talk at the big tables. I'm really clear as to why marketing is not represented as much as it might be in the boardroom, because I think the function, by and large, has real difficulty coping with precision. Yeah. It has real discomfort in terms of, if I spend this amount of money, yeah, this amount is what is going to come back. So how many of you would be really happy of putting 50% of your fee up against performance by results? This is the participative bit now. Yeah? Okay. Well, you go for 50%. Okay, how many you'd go for 50%? How many would be prepared to go for 80%? You see, it's a really interesting one, because I think the quality of advice that you provide is entirely associated with the risk that you ought to be prepared to take. And if you're really confident in the recommendations that you're making, and you're confident that the client trusts you to implement against those recommendations, what you'll actually discover is you'll make a lot more money if you participate in the upside as well as participating in the downside. The thing which is really, really, really interesting is the number of clients that I work with who say, what we need are more people in this organisation who are going to be entrepreneurial. I have to say, some of the most lucrative work that I've ever been involved in is where I've put my entire fee at risk, on the basis of you pay me so much for every new client that you acquire. Yeah. I have to say I've done it on occasions when I've made the thick end of absolutely sod all, yeah, but on other occasions it's clearly been the most lucrative thing that I've ever done. Yeah. So there is a real issue in terms of the purpose of what planning, what marketing and what advertising and what agencies do within the boardroom. It's just do a quick straw poll. Why did you go into the world of agency and marketing and advertising in the broadest context? What was the big trigger to cause you to make that career choice? What do you reckon? Why did you do it? Creative. Be creative, okay, yeah. What's that?
To communicate.
To communicate, all right. Anything else?
Problem solving.
Problem solving?
Diverse.
Diverse? Fun? Pun? Okay. The thing which I find, I mean, I've run various sessions such as this, and I've probably done it over the last 15 years. I've yet to hear anybody say, to help the client sell more stuff. I've heard it's where all the pretty girls work. It's they seem to have a fantastic time on a Friday night. They've got a pool table in reception. Yeah. Obviously, it's really, really. This is just a particular cri de coeur. This is my therapy. I always find it really interesting when I bring clients into agencies, and sometimes I get the chief exec to come along, and you often think, what is a chief exec thinking as they walk into the building, and the first thing they see is a football table, a pool table, and a table tennis table. So they go, oh, fantastic, that's excellent. Yeah, that's the type of organisational structure I want to justify to my shareholders. That's bloody marvellous. Yeah, we're paying £250 an hour for this creative insight. It's only right that they should be able to play table football from time to time. Right? Now, I know I'm being really, really harsh, but ultimately, the only reason that a client is coming to see you, ultimately, is they want to sell more stuff. Yeah, and that's the only thing that's going to be going through the finance director's head, and ultimately, that's the only thing that's going through the chief executive officer's head. Is this going to sell more stuff? Therefore, if you want to find yourself around the big table, genuinely influencing the direction and the performance of the business, you've got to relate it back to, is it going to sell more stuff? Now, there was a time when the economy was growing at 2.5% to 3% per annum, where the task of selling more stuff was comparatively straightforward. You opened the doors, people fell across them, gave you money, and we went from strength to strength. When I was working in the banking world, 2000 through to 2004, I have to say making money working in banking during that period was about as difficult as lying in bed awake. Yeah, it was the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, the economy was growing like crazy. You know, we were all looking in the wrong direction when it came to risk management. Yeah, so building the business was easy. Yeah. The truth is, in the current climate, it's never been more important for organisations to have overwhelming precision as to where it's going to get its growth from, and to have a more clinical requirement in terms of the way in which they target that growth and target customers that they think they can do special work for. Yeah. And audiences, by the way, and organisations are screaming out for people to hold their hand to help them to do that. Yeah. So we move from the world of generalities to the world of real specifics. Without any shadow of a doubt, yeah, directors in the boardroom at the moment absolutely despise ambiguity. Yeah, they completely hate it. You know, what they're looking for at the moment more than anything else is a degree of precision and a real understanding that if I place my bets on this particular square, these are the chances of it coming off. Why? Because they've got to go on a regular basis, quarter by quarter, in order to tell their institutional investors what's going to happen during the next reporting period. Yeah. That is why clients are incandescent with rage when they're told it takes 16 weeks to put a TV campaign together. Yeah. Why? Because they've just had the crap beaten out of them by institutional investors, yeah, for having a shortfall against, you know, projected performance. They've gone to their agency to help them to sell more, and the agency is saying, yeah, we can do that. You need X number of 30-second TV ads. Right, let's press the button. When can we deliver it? It'll be 16 weeks. So you've got nothing to go back and communicate in the next quarter. Yeah. Now, if you've turned up for one of those kick-ins, I have to say you only want to do it once. Because the people that are giving you the kicking, there's one thing that they want and one thing alone, which is precision. And they need precision in order to issue a buy notice, a sell notice, or a hold notice. And if you don't appreciate that is the pressure that the company directors are going through, then you can't give them precise advice. So if you're dealing with publicly quoted companies, you better be aligning your advice and you better be aligning your planning specifically to the quarterly reporting cycle that they're on. Why? Because that determines whether or not the chief exec keeps their job, whether the chairman keeps their job, and the finance director keeps their job. Yeah. So interestingly, just ask yourself, I mean, how many people in this room are aware of the quarterly reporting cycle that your clients are on? Yeah, and how many you gear yourself up pre and post the kickings, yeah, or the plaudits that were received in that quarterly meeting? Because that's the lifeblood of what's making corporate UK tick at the moment. This is the huge challenge. The rate of change that we're experiencing in all markets in which we compete, yeah, is accelerating away, and we're having a real slog of trying to keep up with the rate of change. Yeah, we're the first generation that's having to come to grips with the dilemma of learning from people who are younger than us. I can remember when I was marketing director of EMAP, and we were trying to launch EMAP Digital in 1998. And there were a load of grey suits all sitting around the table trying to decide what to do about digital. And Robbie Miller, who was probably the smartest guy I ever worked with, said, this is absolutely ridiculous. Here we all are, and we struggled to use our NatWest service till card, trying to make decisions about how to allocate $250 million into the space of digital. Henceforward, no decision is made in the boardroom about digital unless there are at least 2 people in the room who are under the age of 26. Because they know much, much more about it than we do. Because what we're doing is we're trying to second guess on the basis of the concept of the gramophone player and the wireless. Yeah. Why? Because rate of change and rate of learning were out of kilter. Yeah. And for those people under the age of 30 in the room at the moment, your insights in many ways are significantly more valuable than the insights of people who are above the age of 50. That's not to say that they're not both valuable, yeah? But we have to learn within the community of marketeers, we have to learn to understand and appreciate issues and emerging trends at a faster rate. This is one of my big dilemmas. Marketing, I think, has painted itself into the corner that is communication. So whatever problem you arrive with, the answer is 750 TVRs comprising of 30-second and 40-second TV ads. Why? Because we really like doing those. Yeah. Robin Miller asked one of the greatest questions I've ever heard when we were looking for somebody to do the launch campaigns on Heat magazine. We had a beauty parade of various agencies that came in, and every agency talked about why a brand plan was so important, why brand anatomy was absolutely essential, and why clear brand communications was really, really important, and how high quality advertising would lie at the heart of the success. And Robin then just said, that's fantastic. Could you send me what the brand anatomy is of your agency, and can you give me some evidence of the best ads that you've done about your agency recently? Which I thought was a really, really interesting question. And of course, what we discovered was that nobody sent any ads about their agency back. Which again, I thought was really, really interesting. So the thing for me which is crucially important in this space is let's go back to basics and define what marketing is there to do, because that will determine the nature of the conversation we have with the most senior people in the organisation. Finding, acquiring, and keeping valuable customers. Work out what valuable actually means, because an awful lot of customers destroy value. I have to say, I will admit to an enormous mistake. I did 4 years at Barclays, and I used to meet on a 2-monthly basis with my opposite number in HSBC. And on the last occasion, we went out for a particularly posh meal, and I congratulated the progress that he'd made. He then turned around at the end, just as we were having coffee, and said, "Oh, Simon, I must admit, look, I'm really, really, really sorry about what I did to you in the current account market." I said, "What do you mean? We hammered you in the current account market. We started with 12.4% market share, and we've ended with 14.8% market share, and we robbed most of it from you." He said, "Yeah, I know, but we worked out who all the crap customers were." Yeah. And what we did, having worked out who all the crap customers were, was we then started providing them with appalling service. And then when they came into the branches to complain about the fact that their checkbooks and debit cards had not been sent, we then trained ourselves to say, "Oh, I know, we've got some real problems in terms of our admin centre. We're so frustrated." But Barclays are doing some really, really good offers at the moment. What they were doing, they were actively shunting rubbish customers through our front door. We went, "Hurrah! This is marvellous, come on in. Destroy some value here." Yeah. So the point which is really, really important is valuable customers have to be defined in a way where shareholders appreciate it. And there are strategies around just making sure that you're getting as much as you possibly can out of the ones you've already got, as opposed to the seduction, bringing a never-ending body of churning customers across the front door. Barclaycard. Barclaycard. How many of you responded to a 0% balance transfer? There you go. So people who respond to 0% balance transfers, what are they attracted by? 0% balance transfers. So this is the conceit, which is you'll come for the 0% balance transfer and you will stay because of the brand. And when the brand goes from it costs nothing to 16.8% APR, you're not supposed to notice it. So the net result was, what was the average dwell time of people attracted on 0% balance transfers? 18 months. How long did they have to stay with the organisation before they became profitable? 22 months. So that was the equivalent of taking £50 notes and setting them on fire. Now the truth being, unless organisations are really, really clear about the behaviour that they wish to elicit and from what types of customers they're trying to get that behaviour, then you end up with marketing activity being value destructive rather than being value generative. And I don't think enough marketing professionals pay sufficient attention in that space. This is the one that drives me bonkers. The reason to commit this level of resource is because it's to do with brand building. Well, I have to say, shoot me now. If you want to be absolutely yeah, whacked across the head on a regular basis, go into a boardroom and say it's to do with brand building. Because what that means is I'm spending somebody else's money, there's a good chance I'll win an award, and candidly I don't care what happens. Yeah? Companies do not become successful because they have executive jets. Yeah, so it's not particularly clever as a startup to go and say, successful companies have executive jets, therefore we get an executive jet and then we'll be successful. I know this is a horrible thing to say given the professionalism that's in this room. The reasons that brands are strong is because people buy them. Yeah? So this nebulous notion of being able to shift the soft dials in various directions, it counts for completely bugger all as far as the finance director and chief executive is concerned if people don't buy it. Now, or indeed, you keep the people that you've already got but get them to pay 20% more without inflating the cost of creating the product or service in the first place. If it's your own money, I can guarantee, I can absolutely guarantee you, if it's your own money, if it's your own business, you will not commit discretionary spend unless you are really, really clear as the progress that you're going to make. For my sins, I bought a Ford dealership out of receivership in the rather arrogant belief that we could turn it around in 18 months and sell it on. I did a terrible thing. I got my wife to sign a mortgage document without realizing that she was agreeing to put the house up as collateral, yeah, against the overdraft facility that we'd arranged with the bank. And I have to admit, on 3 occasions, we came within 24 hours of losing the house. And to this day, she doesn't know that that happened. Yeah? 11 years later, we had 600 car dealerships, a motorcycle dealership, and a caravan dealership. Yeah? I learnt more in that process than anything I've ever done in my life. And if you make 1.5% net margin on sales in a car dealership, you're in the top 10% of all car dealerships in the UK. Yeah, the margins are absolutely tiny. Yeah? Now the point which is really, really important was that I went in thinking, oh, what we now need to do is to build the brand of Grantham Honda. Yeah? So then started doing advertorials in local press, etc., etc. No. Yeah? Yeah? The truth was just to be overwhelmingly preoccupied, yeah, with getting people to buy the product. And do you know what the most effective media was? Handbills in Morrison's car park. It's horrible to tell you, yeah, that photocopied sheets of paper saying there is a sale on Sunday, yeah, with 20% off Ford Fiestas. That was the most effective form of marketing spend. I was traumatized by it, yeah, because I'd spent 10 years as an academic telling people it was all about precise brand positioning, etc., etc., etc. It wasn't. It was about people believing that there was a car retailer on the outskirts of town that sold good cars for reasonable prices. Yeah, that's all people wanted to hear. Deeply held belief, yeah? Brands become successful because people buy them. Yeah? Advertising simply helps in the process. Yeah? And it reminds people to keep on buying them. Yeah? So therefore, if you are thinking about branding, yeah, without any shadow of doubt, you have to think about the money that's being spent and the value that's being created. Poor planners simply help to accelerate the creation of advertising. Brilliant planners contribute to the commercial success of clients' business. Yeah? And if you are obviously contributing to the commercial success of the client, yeah, the client will be all over you like a rash. Yeah, the chief executive will want you to come to dinner with them. Yeah, the finance director will start inviting you, yeah, to the opera and to rugby matches and goodness knows what else. But the whole point is, how do you position yourself as a secret weapon in order to accelerate the performance of the business? Yeah? Part of the issue is we have to begin to recalibrate what the measures of success are. It used to, I mean, I always think it's really interesting is in the Marketing Week and marketing still bang on about recall of advertising. Yeah? Well, that's fantastic for the people who work in the industry. Yeah? It makes all of us feel particularly good in that our ad is better recalled than anybody else's. Yeah? But unless that actually translates into money in the till, it doesn't actually count for a great deal. Now, it used to be that recall and propensity to purchase were inextricably linked. The world is becoming much more complicated than that. Much more complicated than that. The other measure, which used to be a really great measure that people used to love, particularly when you're dealing with the media buying agency, was we've managed to get the cost per thousand down considerably. Candidly, I don't give a stuff what the cost per thousand is. I'm really overwhelmingly preoccupied with the cost per acquisition. Yeah. And if it actually means I've got to pay an enormous amount of money to get 1,000 people, of which 950 of them are going to respond, I'm fine with that. Yeah, but approximate measures around cost per thousand is not a currency that currently works unless you can actually show the causal relationship, yeah, in a way which clearly indicates whether you're destroying value, yeah, or whether you're generating value. Yeah. This is probably one of the most neglected equations imaginable. Yeah? Value is a massively overused word. I don't know how many people here do lots and lots of reporting back on market research. I have to say, whenever you get market researchers in the room and say, "Oh, well, we've done depth interviews, yeah, with 1,250 of your target customers, and what we discovered is that the primary motivator to buy is that customers are looking for value for money." Well, bugger me, couldn't have worked that one out then. You know, the idea that the world divides into some people who want value for money and some people who don't. Yeah? Here's the strategic dilemma. Who shall I go after? The ones who want value for money or the ones that want to be systematically ripped off on a regular basis? Ooh, I'll go after those then. Yeah? Now, value for money is one of those blindingly obvious concepts, but all too often we don't break it down into its component elements. Because what I can guarantee is there will only be 2 or 3 things which will drive satisfaction. There will only be 2 or 3 things that will drive satisfaction. There will be 25 things that will prevent dissatisfaction, but there'll be only 2 or 3 things that drive satisfaction. I can guarantee that whatever drives satisfaction today, in 5 years' time, will only prevent dissatisfaction. Yeah. Can you remember when the first generation of laptops came along, which would connect you to the interweb? Yeah, and you'd get that little musical, yeah, chiming on it while it revved up. Yeah, and then you went and made a cup of tea, and then you came back and it connected. And you went, "Oh, this is marvelous. This is almost like being in a spaceship." Yeah, and then you'd go on to boo.com to look at a nice navy anorak. Yeah, and you'd press the button, you'd go and have another cup of tea while it loaded up, and you go, "Oh, look at that! Isn't it marvelous? Picture on a screen. That's oh." Well, the truth is, unless you've got instant connectivity, unless you have the instant ability to put, and so on and so forth. Why? Because our views of what drives satisfaction haven't changed slightly, they've changed fundamentally. Yeah. Now, where do organisations get it wrong? Well, they oversteer in terms of using that as a way of manipulating a superior value proposition and spend far too little time really probing that. Yeah. As a planner, if you can come up with a completely different perspective on something which underpins satisfaction, yeah, to come up with an angle, to come up with an insight, yeah, to come up with a depth of understanding, yeah, that the client's missed, that is what is worth its weight in gold. That is what will be massively value-adding. Yeah. Interestingly, when we relaunched Selfridges, what we discovered was that men were really crap at buying clothes. Yeah, I mean really, really crap. Yeah. Men had a complete inability to buy anything that was a good fit. And when questioned by their friends, "Oh, why do you buy that suit?" Even though it clearly didn't fit, they go, "Hugo Boss." Yeah? So look like shit, but it's okay because it's Hugo Boss. What we discovered was that most men didn't know what to do or how to do it, felt embarrassed that their wives or girlfriend frequently wanted to come shopping with them and didn't like that process. So we introduced the concept of personal shopper, which was you'd go and talk to somebody, yeah, they would take your measurements, they would talk to you about what you did for a living, what you did in your spare time, where you went on holidays. You'd come back 2 days later, they'd been around the entire store, they'd coordinated things in your size, they then put it before you. It was a good fit, it was colour matched. Yeah. Average transaction value, shopping alone, £78.50. Average transaction value, shopping with a personal shopper, £1,480. Yeah. Now, so is it worthwhile putting more people into that space? Absolutely. Yeah. As long as you're targeting customers correctly. Oh, and by the way, Don't expect anybody under the age of 25 to do that. Yeah. If you've never read the book, please read it. It is the greatest book ever written on marketing. Yeah. It's called The PIMS Principles. Yeah. It's by Strategic Planning Institute. I don't know if it's still in print. Fantastic body of research. Yeah, done between 1990 and 2005. Looked at 6,000 strategic business units worldwide. Looked across a whole range of variables. Surprise, surprise, what did they discover? Regardless of market growth rate, those organisations that made the highest returns on investment had the highest perceptions of quality. So as a planner, if you have a better view of what drives perceived quality than anybody else, that is gold dust. Not actual tangible quality, but the idiosyncratic perceived quality. To bring that to life in a tangible way in the boardroom is what is really value adding. No two ways about it. It's not a good idea to use lilac and then use white out of lilac. Yeah, what that actually says is high, yeah, and that says low, and that says high. This is Michael Porter's, one of his famous frameworks. Using his Monitor consulting organisation, he's looked at a variety of industries globally. Looked at customer satisfaction on one axis, yeah, relative cost position on another. What he said was that if you took all of the cost positions and looked at the organisations delivering the very best customer satisfaction, then you would end up with one organisation delivering superior satisfaction off a given cost position. His argument was if you looked across all cost positions in the industry, surprise, surprise, you'd end up with a curve shape, something like that. So if your business is there, what do you do? Well, okay, so you can do a number of things. You can either reduce your cost position, yeah, which enables you to move towards the productivity frontier. Yeah? So reduce your costs, yeah, hold customer satisfaction. So what you're doing is reduce costs, hold customer satisfaction, yeah, hit the productivity frontier. What else can you do?
Increase satisfaction.
Or increase satisfaction. Yeah. Now the whole point is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're striving to get to the productivity frontier. And if you're really clever, you try to do both. What happens when you get to the productivity frontier? So you've arrived on the productivity frontier. What's just happened? Well, the whole point is you become similar to the people already on the productivity frontier. So for that, yeah, we now understand the crisis that you've got in Japan. Japan became superior because they benchmarked best practice wherever they found it, but they ended up benchmarking against one another, which is why it's really difficult to describe the difference between Panasonic, Technics and Hitachi. Yeah, they're all okay, yeah, but none are remarkable. Why? Because they're all benchmarked one against each other. Yeah? So the real breakthrough comes is when people can perceive that there's a positioning option which is available out there. So in the airline business, who did that? What? Well, EasyJet initially, yeah, so EasyJet went out there. Yeah, so they broke the rules. Who then came to compete against them? Ryanair. So Ryanair took it even further out of there. Could EasyJet compete on price against Ryanair? No, why not? Why not? Is it just because they were profligate, or was there some other reason? Well, the big thing was that there were two things. Yeah? You had massive tax breaks, yeah, coming out of Ireland, so there's a corporation tax issue. Yeah? So they had a much lower tax bill. But more important, Michael O'Leary had done deals with what were previously military air bases, and they paid Ryanair to go there. So that is why if ever you book a ticket with Ryanair to go to Vienna, you land in Hungary. And I'm not exaggerating, it's then an 80-kilometre journey back. Yeah, so on the value satisfaction minus price, oh, we got you for £5, but we are nowhere near Austria. Yeah? But the whole point is, O'Leary will go, I don't give a shit about your level of satisfaction because you've travelled for nothing. Yeah? The point being is, there are very few people who are saying, what should we do next Saturday? Let's go for a ride in an airplane. Yeah? There are very few people who are using budget airlines just to experience flying. So what they're doing is they're coping with the agony of being on Ryanair because they said, I can endure this for an hour because we're going to have a great time in Prague. Yeah, it's not the primary reason for flying. So the big issue for EasyJet was, well, you can't win the battle to the bottom. Yeah? So what you have to do is to figure out a way in which you can hold your cost position but dramatically increase customer satisfaction. So if you're then able to dramatically increase customer satisfaction, go and compete where Ryanair can't compete. So what's the point of trying to beat Ryanair by £3 when you can actually beat British Airways by 60? So change the game. And be prepared to say to the customer, here's a benefit, you no longer need a machete to get on the aeroplane. Yeah? The use of advanced laser-guided technology means you've now got a seat which is allocated. Oh, and by the way, we now take off and land on time. Now the whole point is, yeah, Ryanair was out there, yeah, EasyJet was then in a position to compete with British Airways, who are up there. And I have to pay credit to Tracy, because Tracy did an awful lot of the planning on that. But it was a positioning which was born out of high quality planning, which was based on a real understanding of the financial mechanics of the business, not on the basis of how do we produce more attractive advertising. Your chances of producing more attractive advertising are much, much higher if you really understand, yeah, the industry dynamics down to that level of granular detail. So, if you want to be at the big table, what are the things that you have to do? Well, you've got to really understand how the client's industry works. Yeah, you really have to understand how it works. You have to understand how it's influenced by macro trends. You have to understand, yeah, the impact of, yeah, what's going on in terms of economic activity. Any of you know what's happened in terms of money supply in Germany in the last quarter? Well, you should. It's inexcusable that you don't. Yeah? Money supply in Germany has gone down by 4%. Broad money has gone down by 4% in Germany in the last quarter. Why is that so important? Well, Europe works if Germany is selling stuff. Europe works if Germany is growing. Yeah? 72% of our trade is with the European Union. Yeah? The European Union only works if Germany is healthy. Yeah? So if you want to start making predictions as to what underlying levels of demand are going to be, start by looking at Germany, not America. Yeah? Because we're far more closely tied to Germany now than we are to America. Yes, if you really want to understand the dynamics of certain companies, look at the proportion of their turnover which is derived from mainland Europe. And if a high proportion is derived from mainland Europe, you have to look at what's happening in the German economy. Yeah? Yeah. You have to be able to read their P&L and you have to be able to read their balance sheet. If you can't go in and have a sensible conversation about P&L dynamics, balance sheet dynamics, then you're painting yourself in the corner of being the people who do the advertising. Yeah? And that is not fair to planners, because most of the planners that I've worked with are much, much smarter than just being the people who help to do the comms. Yeah? Please understand how capital markets operate. Yeah? Sources and applications of fund. Yeah? Where the client is getting their money from. Yeah? How many of you know the level of dividend cover that your clients have got? Because if the clients have currently got low dividend cover, they've got a real dilemma. Because at some stage they're going to have to cut the dividend and then they're going to have to explain that to institutional shareholders, and they've got no growth in the share price. So you're going to have a scorched earth policy in terms of where the discretionary spend lies. Yeah? The thing which is fantastic is that all of that information is available completely free of charge. Yeah? You would be staggered at how much of this data you can get, yeah, with 15 keystrokes. Yeah? Yeah? Already talked about how the economy works. Yeah? To be in the boardroom, you have to know more than any other person in the room about how the customer lives their lives, yeah, and how they make decisions. And please don't go into the boardroom and say, oh, there's a significant increase in the number of metrosexuals that currently exist who drink this number of lattes and have sex 4 times a month, etc., etc. And you go, and the evidence is what? Oh, well, that's what all my mates do. Yeah, this airy-fairy, namby-pamby directional, non-numbers-based stuff is interesting to create a hypothesis, but it's not enough to commit a 10 million quid advertising campaign against. So unless you can put hard numbers against it, it's interesting, but it's not essential. Yeah? And I have to say, it is one of the biggest problems both in terms of publishing, yeah, and in terms of marketing services, that an awful lot of ideas are generated, yeah, principally for the community as defined by, yeah, advertising and marketing people. I know that you're going to find this really, really upsetting. Chief execs and finance directors do not read campaign. They do not read marketing week. They do not read marketing. By and large, they don't give a monkeys about awards. Yeah? Our industry is fixated by them. Yeah? What they care about more than anything else is whether the agency helps them to sell more stuff. And then finally, be more fluent in the language of business. Go in there as a business expert, not just as a comms expert. What I have to say of planners is I owe an enormous debt of gratitude. There are two in the room that have helped me enormously. Yeah. They've ended up making me look much better than I am in reality. Why? Because they've armed me with insights and hard data and hard sums, yeah, and the ability to actually win arguments with finance directors to justify the spend levels that I've been given. Spend the money as if it were your own. I know that's a really tough thing to do, but think about it. If it was your own money, would you be putting against it? Oh, and by the way, if you really believe in the advertising, then go and buy some shares in the company. Because if you really believe it's as good as you're telling the client it is, then it's worthwhile investing in it because you're going to sell more and the share price will go up. Yeah? What it comes down to ultimately is a real understanding that the reward from basing risk is profit. Yeah, so there's no formula which can absolutely guarantee return on marketing investment, but you can actually minimize the risk. What you can do is understand the odds better. Yeah? And the final thing that I say is that planners, for me more than anything else, yeah, when they do their job brilliantly, they win trust. And trust is, again, a word like value, which is massively overused, yeah, but infrequently defined, and this is the Oxford English Dictionary definition of trust: firm belief in someone or something, acceptance of the truth of a statement without evidence or investigation. Planners who are really on form find senior people saying, well, if they're saying it, then we ought to go with it. That's when you know you're being successful, because your advice, guidance and insight is fundamentally trusted. As you probably guessed, I could talk a glass out to sleep on the subject. Yeah. Hopefully there's one or two controversial ideas. Hopefully one or two of them resonate reasonably well. And thank you ever so much for inviting me. Thank you.